Ed, good to see you. When I was a mission treasurer, Paul was here at the General Conference, and he came to visit with us. And that was when we were using hidden treasures. You remember that? That's a long time ago. And I don't know how I can express to you what an inspiration it was to go through that. It was kind of a high moment in my life. So thank you so much for that, and blessings to you. Glad to see you in good health. Good morning, everyone. I have returned from a long trip. I was in Hong Kong, Korea. Didn't see you there, Sung Guimo. And Manila. So my energy level is a little bit compromised today. So I'm going to go straight to the point. I'm going to do exactly what I have done when I am teaching a Sabbath school lesson. And I know I have a very short time to teach the lesson. I can't go on forever. I will go straight to the conclusion, and then I will cover the rest of it as I can. Perhaps before I go into, are we seeing anything here? Yes. Yeah. Okay. Just to give you a bit of a report on how we are closing the year. We have not closed yet. We are going through the audit process, and we don't like to put out any information until we see where things settled. The financial markets and the US dollar value or impact on us has really given us a very serious hit to the income for the year 2015. Exactly how much it is and how limiting it is going to be in our statement, I don't know, and I don't want to advance it, but it has been significant. You know that if China goes down, if the economy of China goes down, the ripple effect on me here is indirect, because I don't have any monies coming from Chinese, if you know what I mean. In other words, the money of China is, by virtue of what it is, it's kept within China. But if things go down significantly in Australia, or in Mexico, or in Brazil, as it was this year, or here in the United States, I will feel it immediately, because we very much depend on those incomes. Also, the value of the dollar has been very strong, and it has discounted significantly the value of those currencies. So people may have been very faithful in returning a faithful tithe where they are, but if the economies of those countries is such that the dollar is just simply too strong against them, then they get discounted by the time they are translated into us here. So we have a loss. Those losses are obvious for 2015. There are economic recessions and that affect member giving, especially in Brazil. And Brazil, I mention that only because Brazil is our second country in income importance. Maybe the third, I would say. You have the number one is the United States. The number two is Canada. Number three would be Brazil. It's a very large economy. and is going through a recession that is actually now going into its second year, but it's not going to be, it's not going to come back. The country is not going to come back to a full economic strength until probably expected 2018. So that's likely to remain as it is. We are in the process of repurposing our facilities here in this building. Some people have asked, you know, are you going to stay in this building? Are you going to sell this building, go to a different one? We haven't gotten that far. We know that the North American division is leaving to have their own building in another location. That's going to hit our finances also by about $1.2 million, $1.3 million a year, because there'll be no allocation of overhead to them. So I'm just preparing for that beginning 2017. And the repurposing of the building is simply that we're going to have to redistribute the space and capture, move people around so that we can make use of the space. That costs money. In this country, anywhere between $50 to $70 per square foot. By the time you add all the labor and everything. So we are anticipating that that's going to hit us in 2017. Our finances in December of last year, see, the loss in income came in a year which is usually the 5th year of our quinquennium, is the year of the General Conference session, and your expenses for the General Conference session are most of them during that 5th year. So we anticipate that it's not going to show too nice in paper. It's going to hit our liquidity and working capital, and it is going to we're going to operate still for a few years in an uncertain economic environment. It depends on the week, I suppose, the whim of the emotions of the people. A piece of news actually changes how the markets do. Now, how much do I depend on the market? I'll be honest with you, not very much. For the last 8 years, maybe 10 years, I moved all the monies out of as much as possible, out of fluctuating investments, and we put them in as fixed as possible, simply because I cannot be beholden to the emotions of the people in the market. So we are on a given good year, I don't make a lot of money. I'm talking about the investments of our working capital reserves. Now you would say, why do you need working capital reserves? Because you want your money when you ask for it. You don't want to wait until somebody sends me money so that I can give you some money. That's why I need the working capital reserve. That's the meaning of having a 100% working capital. That I don't have to wait until somebody brings me money so that I can give somebody else some money. It's so simple. People think that it's kind of a mystery, or no. People will need their payroll when the time for payroll comes. I cannot tell them, well, I haven't gotten the remittance from Inter-America. And then, therefore, I can't have your payroll. I'm very sorry. You understand what I'm trying to explain to you? And we are in the middle of a new stewardship initiative, so to speak, because and we will talk about this a little bit more on Thursday. So I will stop at this point, but We have invested in assisting the divisions with a full stewardship director for the years 2016, 17, 19, and then half of the following year. That means we have already set the money aside for that. Why do we do that? And I was so glad to see the presentation, hear your presentation, dear Pastor. It was an excellent piece. Congratulations. The Lord has given you a touch. Excellent. But for some time, during the years when Elder Paul Smith was here, administration thought that the better part of wisdom was to actually take all the departments and put them all together into the experiment that was called church ministries. How many of you remember that? Okay. When that occurred, the visibility of the stewardship department was compromised. And the interest of our people out in the field of specializing in this area diminished. Because of that, then, and after that, when that experiment didn't work, and some of us had a hunch that it wasn't going to work, but you just have to, wait for the right time to say your word. The departments became already individualized or separately, operating separately. But stewardship was kept under ministerial. That was at the time when I think Spangler was ministerial director. Okay? So that was another, I think, 10 more years like that. So stewardship basically went off the radar. Then we came back. We came back with full force. Stewardship director, boom, boom, boom. And this is not in my presentation, so I don't know why I'm telling you these things, because you already know this, all right? Okay? So it came back. We took them out of the stewardship, that was in the 90s. We took them out of ministerial, set them apart, and we said, now you're a stewardship director again. You're a stewardship department again, stewardship ministries. That's when the name Stewardship Ministries began. What happened then is that all kinds of questions came up, How do you use the funds? And how are we using this? And how are we using the other? And we got into dialogues that I had the feeling that we didn't have the depth of conviction in the department to simply promote giving. And we took kind of a detour, and we started talking about discipleship. So the purpose of the department, stewardship department, was to prepare disciples. I never heard of that before. When that happened, and that went on for about 10 years, it took a long roundabout way to talking about tithes and offerings before you would actually tell the people what the Lord has for them, what the purpose of their affluence and income is. Am I making any sense to you?
Yes.
Okay. So what I'm trying to say to you in just few words is that we went on a desert tour for approximately 30 years. We haven't yet returned completely. I'm hoping that we can buy our ticket back. because we're not teaching people about discipleship. That is somebody else's problem. Stewardship is not about discipleship. And forgive me for being emphatic about this. We are about teaching our people the blessings that God has for them when they are faithful in tithes and offerings and in giving of their property. That's what we are here for. Amen. Now, if you have trouble with that, then you are in the wrong department. We can show you where they teach about discipleship, and you can go there. Is that okay? Am I kind of offending anyone? If I am, I truly apologize. But this speech is overdue. Long overdue. We are approximately 15 years overdue. I want to give you a few thoughts today in reference to towards a new stewardship strategy. There's nothing new, really. It's just going back to what we were doing 30 years ago. Am I making sense to you? This is the point. And these are my questions. And I want you to keep these questions because I'm going to repeat the questions at the end of my presentation today. Is there more we can do to create an effective strategy to teach stewardship to our members? Is there a better way? Is there a way in which we can finally get through the filter of the pastor to the member? We have lost our ability, at least in some divisions, we have lost our ability to talk to our pastors. They don't pay attention to us anymore. And to get to your members, I hate to tell it to you this way. The most influential person in the life of a member is the pastor. So if we lost our pastors, we have lost a lot. We would think, well, we will write of it in Adventist Review, in Adventist World, and members will read about it. We say, we will talk about it in Hope Channel, and people will hear about it. The man at the center of this story is the local pastor. How can we actually regain those guys back? I have a dream, and it's this dream, nothing extraordinary. I dream that each pastor will preach one sermon, truly convincing sermon, about tithes and offerings once a year. I would be happy with one sermon per pastor once a year. One sermon that people will leave the church that day and say, Amen. Wow. Yes. I have a dream. Now, is that too much to ask? Can we find a way somehow to get that? Because if you preach the sermon, people are not going to hear it the same. It has to be the pastor. Are you there? And the second point is, how can we better connect with our people? How can we better connect with them? All right. I want to give a statement here that is my own personal. I think Penny, you read it in the piece I wrote. I want to give it to you just because it comes straight from my heart. The church is the steward of Jesus Christ. Now, if you can look at the church in the area of stewardship as a combination of administration, stewardship educators, and then the practice of it. I don't know when we separated administration from the educational part. I don't know where that started. I don't have that clear in my mind. Maybe they were never together. Well, let me tell it to you this way, and this is part of the new strategy I wish to propose. Administration is part of stewardship. Treasury is part of stewardship. We do the numbers part of it. We do the strategic part of it. You do the educational part of it. But we are all part of the stewardship panorama. Is that simple enough? So I really want to see that we, division by division, and even when invited, if possible, people from Treasury will join people from stewardship in programs out there in the field. Are you there with me? Okay? Why? Because we are part of stewardship. We need to tell them, they need to hear from us, not from you, how the church is operating financially. That's why so many people out there are still asking, what do you do with the mission offerings? And what do you do with this? And what do you do with the other? And how is the money used for this? And how is the money used for that? That separation between administration and stewardship department it's a road to nowhere. I hate to tell you this, folks, but I'm giving you my sincere convictions. You can do with them what you wish. But if you're going to do anything different and reach the people where they are, you're going to have to do something different quick. I was going to take time to do a lot of reading. I won't, because time is flying. But you can read this text. This text tells you about when the disciples decided that it was necessary to select people, select some to be in charge of the distribution of things to the widows. And in this context, it was necessary to select people of great wisdom, people of great reputation, people that had a lot of ability, and they brought Stephen and others. And the first one that says is, the first section here says that these leaders that were financial managers, by the way, were selected, they were assigned, they were empowered. And the apostles said, we want to leave this man to be responsible for what's happening with the money because we want to be doing something else. Now that's not happening anymore. Okay? That's why I would seriously, sincerely would like to advise that in your divisions where you are and in your unions, you join forces with Treasury. That's the apostolic, that was what happened in the time of the apostles. The money part was not really, truly, completely separated from what was the educational part of it or the mission part of it. And that's number one. Verses 5 and 6 says that they received the approval of the assembly. The brethren said, yes, it's a good idea, let's do it. And then verse 7 says that things worked out. It worked. So I think we can do something simple like that, and it probably will work. We have some issues to take care of. We need to actually redefine if stewardship is discipleship or if it is teaching our people how to live their lives in a practical way, in a holy way, in what refers to material possessions. Now, I want you to know that the strength of the Adventist Church is that you have your hand in my pocket, okay? And I have mine in yours. Remember that. If you forget everything else, remember that. The best definition of the relationship that we have within the Adventist Church in terms of money is that you have your hand in my pocket and I have my hand in your pocket. That's so simple, but it is what it is. So why am I saying that? Folks, we have this love-hate relationship to money. Our pastors don't want to talk about money. It just blows my mind. How do we reinvent or redefine? How do we relate to teaching this? Instead of going around talking about discipleship, how can we directly and tell the people, you know what? The same people that hate our pastors having to talk about money on Sabbath are paying thousands of dollars to go and hear a financial guru somewhere else. And the best information about money is here. Stewardship is not a financing method, and I accept that. But this is the model that we have received from Scripture. There is no other model. It's tithes and offerings. So simple. And in the days of the apostles, it was the people giving of their property. It was so simple. Can we rethink that? Stewardship and selfishness and pastoral participation, I already talked about that. Secularism, materialism, and relativism. And issues with the church as an institution. You know, it's a terrible thing to have administration. I say that sincerely. Because people see that the church is this presidents and this treasurers and this, and they tell us what to do. But I must tell you this, my friends. The Lord has given us the structure of the church as it is for a reason. I just came from China. They have engineered their own organization there. One region is teaching one thing about the message, another one is teaching something else about the message. There's no connection. There's a poor region that doesn't get any help from the richest region. And, you know, all of those things are equalized the moment you establish the church as we have it today. Because remember, you have your hand in my pocket, and I have my hand in yours. we have issues with that. I was in Russia in 1993 to 1996. Elder Wilson and I worked together for 3 years. It was my first division treasury experience. Let me tell you this. We started actually teaching with Brother Zawadzki, teaching about putting tithe envelopes in the churches and church books for records and accounting and accountability, etc., etc., what we now take for granted. And things began to work a little better, gradually. Now we have it working well, but then some people have this, we need to do away with administration. Well, I'm telling you, it'd be very hard to operate the church if we do away with it. And we have issues that we need to address, and that's why I think I want to have teams instead of just one stewardship educator going to a big meeting. I want to have teams of administration and education to talk about credibility and transparency and accountability. Because our people need to be reassured that when they put their monies into the church, we're doing everything we can to protect them. Are we making any sense to you? And one of the things we need to do desperately, my friends, is to improve the participation of the younger. The people that are earning the best, the good, the better part of our earning profile in the local churches are the younger ones, and they are only tithing from time to time. So how can we do better with them? I wanted to have these two texts. Faith comes by hearing. If you don't talk about it, people will not believe it. Okay? So if you have the conviction, open your mouth and say something. And the second thing is, how shall they hear without a preacher? Talk. I had a whole list, but I think I will refrain myself because of time. I read a study that was done here. It wasn't done here. It was done by Robert MacGyver in, where is the South Pacific Division representation? Yes. Very good study. Very good study. I read it as I was flying this past week. Fantastic. I took out my conclusions out of it. Interesting. I took 12 conclusions out of that. Studied churches in 4 divisions, 4 conferences, 4 divisions. Interesting that the survey was designed to reveal what motivates people in the church to return the tithe. People like to be motivated out of gratitude, not out of the blessings they will get. How do you like that? They don't want to be told, return the tithe because you'll get a blessing. They want to be told, return the tithe because you're a grateful son of God. That is a grace encapsulated message. The churches were studied in Northern California, in South England, in Sao Paulo, and Western Australia. The study was based on 8,058 responses. The overwhelming majority of those who tithe 8% or more of their income believe that God has blessed them because they tithe. They see the hand of God in their lives and in a most practical manner. However, it says, in all the conferences studied, there was a strong correlation between the motive of tithing because of gratitude. So if you are going to teach stewardship, just put that in your mind. There's more to say. I will not have the time to do that, but I would encourage you, Stewardship Department, to take that study, at least the executive summary of it, and share it with them. Because to me, it is extremely revealing. And in the study, it is revealed very clearly that the younger people are very infrequent in returning tithes and offerings. It's not the oldest folks in the churches, it's the younger ones. And they are the ones that are earning the most. And they are the ones that can actually benefit the most. There's also a strong correlation between attending church, participating in Sabbath school, and returning the tithe. People that don't attend church don't return the tithe. People that don't attend church or participate in Sabbath school, they do not return the tithe regularly. That is very clear. Now, can we do things better? This is going low battery here. I already told you what my dream is. I jumped the gun. I dream that each pastor will preach a convincing stewardship sermons on tithes and offerings once a year. Not more than 25 minutes. Long sermons are not effective. A 25-minute, fully charged, good message, once a year, one pastor, each pastor. And do it with an open book approach. You know that people tune you out when you're not preaching well? When your sermon is of no interest to them, they tune you out completely. They have their iPads and their cell phones and all that. Prepare your sermon thinking about what they can look in there. And tell them, I want you to open your iPads or your cell phones and go straight to this web page. Go to this app and see what's in there. Guide them, because they do it anyways. And the question here is obvious, is basically, how should we be leaders? Yeah. And I'm going to lower the boom on you completely this morning. And this is what actually really, if you're going to find something that really moves me, this is what does. When you read the statements from Ellen White about giving in the last days, what you find is that Ellen White talks about more urgent necessities today than we had on ancient Israel. She said that a great more work is to be accomplished in a very short time. She talks about the spirit of sacrifice to be broadened and deepened. Now, I mind you there, I want to say this to you. If we were to do an accounting of how much money people give separately that do not go through church books, what people give directly, you know, donors, big donors give to an institution, a whole library, or give in different ways. If we were to account for all of that altogether, okay? And when people come here to know that shouldn't be doing that, but they come and they do fundraising directly by talking to individuals that are wealthy, and they get the donations directly. If you were to put it all together, I believe we would be surprised to see what the real picture is. Our people are giving a lot. The problem that we're going to be confronting, and I see it in the financial statements and the reports that we are seeing for 2016, for 15, is that people are choosing to give so much to projects that we are really in danger of maintaining the operation in your places, because there will not be, if the trend continues, there will not be enough money to do everything we're giving you to do. Am I making any sense to you? And because the department wasn't there yet, I just don't know, my dear folks. And I appreciate the work that has been done over the last few years. I'm not putting anyone personally down. I don't want to. Please don't go out of here saying, you know, hey, Brother Pooney and Brent Maxon and whoever was here before then. It was Jim Crane and what's the other one? I forget. Charles Griffin, and there were others, because they're no longer here. I'm not putting them down. They did their best. They were placed under certain circumstances, and they did their best. Now, folks, let's move away from there, okay? Let's move away from there and let's do better. Now, you are mighty silent here today. Maybe I'm scaring you to death. Okay? Now, this is what Ellen White says, talking about cutting down possessions instead of increasing them. Now, I thought about this family who sold their properties or their investments in Europe, and they came to us 4 or 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I forgot how many years ago, and they brought the tithe of their sale. Now, the tithe of their sale is approximately $106 million. Now, you think it's easy to give the tithe of $10? Or let me ask the question the other way. Do you think it is easier to give the tithe out of $1 million as opposed to giving the tithe of $10?
If you used to give it out of $10, it's easy out of $1 million.
Yes, but let me tell you, out of $1 million, $100,000 looks like a big chunk of money. And I was moved when this personal checks began arriving to us saying, this is my tithe. Now, people need to be, says Ellen White, in connection with the end of time, they need to be impressed that they need to divest of investments. Instead of going into more and more and more, some people need to divest. There's more, but when I go through this long list out of this statement from Ellen White, I realize that that actually falls on us to tell the people. I may be old-fashioned, and I realize that. My daughters tell me that. My wife tells me that. I'm a hopeless, incurable, old-fashioned guy. I don't like basketball, I like baseball. Okay? That alone tells you something. Okay? If I was in the younger generation, baseball doesn't count. What counts is basketball. I'm the other way. What I'm trying to say to you, and I close now, is Is there more we can do to create an effective strategy to teach stewardship to our members? How can we better connect with our people?